My name is Yerushalmi, and I'm the CIO and COO of the Leumi group. I have some friends here, and some of them probably will raise their eyebrow, not understanding what I'm doing here. So after 20 years in a different domain in Amdocs, I joined Bank Leumi, and I'm here mainly to get answers from this panel and from this audience about my main challenges. And when I moved to Bank Leumi, I didn't know that I will really deal with so many cyber challenges that get me busy almost every day. And as a result, I felt honored to be here, and I'm sure I'm going to get some answers, some great answers from this great panel. So let me introduce the panel. We have here Guy Horowitz, head of Israel Deutsche Telekom, Group Business Development and Venturing. We have Gregor Freund. He's the CEO and founder of Versal. Sergey Malych, who is an adventurer and a hacker, and we had some fun discussion prior to this forum, and I'm excited to talk to him after that. And we have Michal Blumenstyk-Braverman. She's the general manager of Global Solutions, RSA, the security division of EMC. So let's start. Cyber. A cybercrime is a hostile computing activity intended to cause financial damages by damaging critical computing infrastructure, direct theft of funds, reputation damage, etc. Now, we know that with the technology that is evolving, we see an escalation in cybercrimes. And for me, it's becoming a huge problem. And when we chat before, I said I cannot really plan, not my budget, not my day, not how much I will invest, and so on and so forth, because obviously I don't know how many cyber attacks I will have, when I will have them, and how much effort I need to put into this activity. As a matter of fact, it's a very disruptive activity for me. On the other hand, we know that this disruptive activity takes all of us forward with coming with new technology. So we'll talk a little bit about this escalation process, about the crime industry. And in my mind, one of the solutions, obviously, is to take a broader approach by collaborating better, by taking quick response and understanding your enemy. And one question that really bothers me a lot is, where should we be on this continuum between being reactive, active, and proactive? So let's start with some of the questions, and you guys can also touch some of my opening points. So one of the main challenges that I am debating with is cloud technology. And the question is, cloud technology has great business advantages. When confronting the cyber threats, is cloud technology a risk or opportunity? Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, one correction. I'm not in RSA anymore. I was the general manager of RSA Israel and heading the cyber fraud global RSA line, and then I was the global general manager of solutions. Now I'm going to start a new place. I cannot say about it now, but in 2 days you'll be able to know. But in the last 10 years, what I did is cybersecurity, and a lot of it was in the cloud. Many of the banks in the world were using our products and services out of Israel. And we protected about 300 million end users all over the world. Most of them are from the financial industry. Now, when you deal with cloud security, you have a few challenges. First, you have the challenge that obviously you have to protect the data that is in the cloud. And you have to rely, as a client of the cloud, you have to rely on someone else to protect your more important assets. So this is one challenge. The other challenge, which is from the other side, sometimes you're storing very secretive and proprietary information. And you don't want that the US or some other government in the world will subpoena your cloud provider and will ask you to see the data, because it's data that only you want to have. So a security cloud provider, goes without saying, has to provide the best security and privacy. But they also have to make sure that under some circumstances, they cannot see and they cannot know what you're storing. So in case you're being subpoenaed, they will not be able to share it with the government. So this is quite a challenge.
Okay. Guy, you want to add?
Sure. I mean, Deutsche Telekom is a German company, and if there's one thing you've got to remember when you walk out of this session about Germans is that they tend to be stricter about data privacy, data security than anyone else. It's a cultural thing, obviously. We're not going to change the Germans, so we've got to appreciate and we've got to accommodate the needs of our customers, who are the largest enterprises in Europe and in the world, and if they ask us to have the data stored, and the cybersecurity, from a cybersecurity perspective, it's not only where the data is stored, rather what happens in the process of moving the data between different sites for disaster recovery, for retrieval, for actual use of the data. They would not want to have their data in a public cloud, and if there's a private cloud, then what's the difference? We just want to have it on our premise. But with the evolution of technologies and the development of new types of solutions, it's actually not cost effective to do that or to rely solely on hosting in your own premise. And by the way, when you do disaster recovery properly and you're compliant, your data has to travel far enough, and in that process, a lot of bad stuff can happen to your data if it's not properly protected. So it's not a question of a cloud, it's a psychological issue that the customers have. Now, we're in Israel, and Israel can be proud to have some of the most exciting, most innovative, and most advanced cybersecurity solutions in the world. Some of them, by the way, are cloud-based. Can those companies actually cater to the needs of a Deutsche Telekom or one of our customers, a Lufthansa or an SAP or a Mercedes? Answer is yes. We just have to say that it's German-made and it's hosted by Deutsche Telekom in Germany, which might or might not be true. But I've been asked, those Israeli solutions, they have backdoors, right? Anyone not having been asked or not having asked their vendor about backdoors? So the answer is, you know what, now with Prism we know every platform, every solution has got a backdoor. We've got to acknowledge that. If it hasn't got a backdoor, someone will be able to penetrate. So let's assume they all have backdoors. Now the only question is, who stands behind that backdoor? Is it a guy from China or Russia or the United States or Israel? And answering that question and saying, you know what, it's the Israeli guy behind that backdoor, actually relieves some of the concerns and pains that those customers have. Because if you have to pick your enemy, may it be your ally. So I think some of those concerns are going to go away in the next few years.
Gregor was smiling a little bit, so probably has something to say.
I come from somewhat a unique perspective. I started internet security company, Zone Labs, that then got acquired by Checkpoint, which is, if not the largest, one of the largest Israeli technology companies, and then became investor in quite a few security companies. SixScan actually is an Israeli company that we just signed a contract for. But at the same time now I'm running a rapidly growing internet company, so I'm kind of like on the other side where I kind of suddenly start to have to worry about my own data and my own business and business disruption. And one of the really, really frustrating things when we did a lot of large enterprise sales was that at one point you just go into a company and says, hey listen, right now you don't need to buy security technology. What you really need to do is you need to get your own house in order. That means security really starts in how you architect your systems. It's kind of like people buy airbags before they even have a car that has good tires and has a solid chassis and all of this stuff. So the first thing you really got to do is have a clear understanding what your business processes are, have a complete separation between user interfaces and your business processes, have things like, I mean, if you look at the NSA and the government in the last 2 years, the US government lost in 2 cases a tremendous amount of data, and in both cases, the person who got the data had access rights to the data. But nobody ever asked the question is, well, you get 1 record, you get 2 records, maybe you get 10 records. Should you really get 200,000 records of that data? So there was nothing in the business logic that also had a security logic that says, okay, well, the guy has access, but maybe he shouldn't download the whole database at any given time. And so that's really the first thing you got to do. And then use security technology as a backup, as opposed to a primary line of defense. And we can talk about best practices a lot more.
Mm-hmm. So maybe a few more points as food for thoughts, and maybe I'll get my answers towards the end of the day. But in our bank, when we are facing cyber threats or attacks, in some cases we move our sites to the cloud so that we are avoiding some of those attacks that are impacting our infrastructure. Obviously, I'm not going to give Sergey too many tips what we are doing so that he's going to hack our technology, but I can say that some organizations are telling us, you know what, the information on the cloud is more secured because, first of all, it is coded. Second of all, it is within everybody else. So, you know, the information of the bank, Leumi, is with Bank of America and Citi and Barclays and Facebook and Google and Yahoo and so on. And it will be very hard to understand how to retrieve the data for security purposes. One more thing that we need to look at, obviously, is the distinction between security and privacy. So I'll leave you with those items to think about, and maybe we should move to the new technologies. For me, it seems that a lot of time we're doing the same thing, and some of the solutions that we're using may be obsolete. So the question is, what emerging technologies will give better opportunities when confronting our adversaries? What is being done in this respect by the Israeli industries? And maybe we'll start with Guy.
We've been looking, Deutsche Telekom has been looking into Israel in the sense of cybersecurity. It's funny, it's not cybersecurity, right? It used to be information security, and then someone decided that we've got to ruin these terms because now we all say cyber. When you say cyber, you don't even have to add the word security. You understand that something bad is about to happen, right? There used to be great stuff associated with cyber. Even cyber sex was once on this exact stage. Now you say cyber, everyone assumes that you're talking about bad stuff. A bit like Homeland Security, right? So now you say Homeland and everyone is in panic. Homeland is, it's my country, it's my home. Why is it scary? But never mind. Now everyone calls it cybersecurity. Before it was called cybersecurity, it was information security. And we have been developing technologies for our own use and for our customers here in Israel for the past decade, almost a decade. In Beersheba, which is now cyber capital of Israel, maybe one day cyber capital of the world. But we've been doing that for a while. I think there are some other companies who've moved a lot of their activities in the cyber security space to Beersheba. But in the Tel Aviv area and vicinity, we have many companies addressing what's known as APTs, Advanced Persistent Threats, and zero-day attacks. What we're learning in our experience with our customers, big customers, there's no one solution fits all. There's no one-size-fits-all solution in cybersecurity. And even further, there's not a single technology that can handle all the threats that it's supposed to deal with. So you need the expertise, unfortunately or fortunately, you need the expertise of people like Sergey and others to complement the technology. And people who do not understand it and just go for a technology platform that will do the trick will probably miss out, and we need compliance, right? People do not really need security. They want to be compliant. You're going to be sleeping well if you're compliant, even if someone steals your data, because insurance is going to pay for that. But if you're not compliant, even if your solution is amazing, you're not going to be awarded for that. Something to think about.